How's it going, you guys? This is Derek J407, back to you for the second night in a row, here to talk about Money in the Bank 2018, live from Chicago, Illinois. Show just went off not too long ago, and I'd say overall, it was good. I can't really say a whole lot more than that. I mean, there was a lot of really good matches on the show, but some of the finishes felt a little flat to me, even though people who won were people I liked. I don't know, some of the finishes felt a little flat to me, particularly the two Money in the Bank ladder match winners, the two mixed match challenge partners, Alexa Bliss and Braun Strowman. They were two people who added star power to their respective ladder matches, but they were also two people who did not need the briefcase. They really didn't need the briefcase to be in contention for a championship. Either Alexa or Braun could challenge for either championship any given day of the week, and no one would bat an eyelash to it. You know, it would just be easy. So they didn't really need the briefcase. I felt there were other people in both matches who would have benefited more from getting the briefcase, but they did what they did with Alexa, with her cashing in and becoming the champion. And Braun, I don't know how long he will hold it. I imagine he'll hold it for a while. He'll have to, since Brock Lesnar probably won't show up for a few more months. But I can understand why they chose that, but I don't know, those finishes felt a little flat to me. I noticed on Twitter some of the other finishes felt a little flat to other people. So, we'll get into all of it. We'll, get through this show, but like I mentioned before, I thought it was good overall. It did have some down points, Roman and Jinder, for example, but, we'll get into all of it. So, let's, start from the beginning. Start at the kickoff show. It was the SmackDown Tag Team Championship match. The Bludgeon Brothers, Harper and Rowan, defending against Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Decent tag team match. Nothing really special about it. Gallows got taken out early on, so Carl Anderson kind of fought by himself. But eventually Gallows came back. They looked pretty dominant, and it looked like they had a shot of winning, but you just knew it wasn't going to happen. They attempted a magic killer on Rowan, on Luke Harper, I'm sorry. But Rowan came in and tackled Carl Anderson, and then they hit their assisted powerbomb on Gallows, and that was the end. So Harper and Rowan are still the champions. I don't know who's really left for them to face. I guess they haven't faced the New Day head on yet. Sanity is still out there. You got Sheamus and Cesaro, who haven't appeared on TV in a few weeks. So there's options, I suppose. Then on to the main show. Show kicked off with Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass. Haven't been a big fan of this feud. The big man versus little man stuff and the dialogue that they've given to Big Cass. I mean, I like Cass. Okay. He's fine. He has potential, but this feud hasn't really done much to improve my opinions on him. So the quicker it ended, the better. And it seems like the feud's over now based on the finish. So, the match was okay. It actually started out okay and turned pretty good. The crowd, of course, was hot for Daniel Bryan. Every chance they got, they chanted his name, did the yes chants and all that kind of stuff. So they were firmly behind Daniel Bryan, and he was pretty successful throughout a lot of the match. You know, a lot of kicks and stuff like that, targeting Kaz's knee, of course. But, you know, the size difference played a big factor for Kaz, but it was not enough. He attempted the torture rack numerous times in the match. He eventually did get it, but it wasn't enough to keep Bryan down. And then eventually Bryan locked in the heel hook on Kaz's injured leg that was re-injured in this match. He reapplied it, and Kaz once again taps out to Daniel Bryan. So the whole big man versus little man thing doesn't really play a factor anymore, since Kaz has tapped out twice to Daniel Bryan. So the best thing about this feud is that it's given Daniel Bryan 2 dominant victories over Kaz. So, but hopefully this is where it ends. The babyface won clean with a tap out nonetheless. So Hopefully this signifies the end of the feud. Speaking of ends of feuds, next matchup was Bobby Lashley versus Sami Zayn. The fans booed Lashley when he came out, and they booed him for the early part of the match and cheered for Sami Zayn. I don't understand how you could cheer for either one of these guys based on the feud they've had to endure over the last few weeks, last month, or whatever it's been. It's been a terrible feud. The Lashley sisters, the obstacle course, the Instagrams, everything about this feud has just been awful. And I said the only way to make up for it was to either have a really short match or have an incredible 5-star classic. They did not do the latter, but they pretty much did the former. Zayn tried to play mind games early on, but eventually Lashley got him, and he just kept going to the same two moves, this like torture rack back cracker kind of move, and then drop him and then lift him up for a vertical suplex and kind of keep him up in the air. The crowd started to cheer for it, so they were cheering for the at least the vertical suplex thing. So they Lashley did win them over in that regard. And then after a couple of those back and forth, Lashley just pinned Sami and won. So it was pretty much over within minutes. And hopefully this feud is over. Hopefully this feud is dead, buried 12 feet under the ground. Maybe incinerated, I don't care. These guys need to move the fuck on. Up next, the Intercontinental Championship was on the line. Seth Rollins defending against Elias. These guys had a pretty good match. Best match of the 3 so far. Yeah, they had a really good match. I enjoyed it. Seth, he sold his neck for the early part, after the guitar shot from a few weeks ago, so he was selling his neck injury, but he eventually started to sell a knee injury. He went for that diving knee on Elias, but Elias moved out of the way, and when Seth came down, he came down right on it was one of his injured knees. I think both of them were hurt. So he came down on one of them and started to sell the knee injury. He sold that for the remainder of the match, pretty much. Elias impressed. He impressed me. He held his own. At one point, Seth went for a frog splash and Elias got his knees up. Another point, on the outside, Rollins went for a dive through the ropes. And when he went through with the dive, Elias caught him in midair and just slammed him right into the security wall, then immediately threw him into the ring post, then threw him into the steel steps, and then threw him right back in the ring, went up top and hit an elbow drop. I honestly did think it was over there, but Seth managed to get his shoulder up before the 3 count, so that was a really good sequence for Elias. But the finishing sequence came when Elias went for the drift away, but Seth reversed it, and then there was a series of roll-ups between the two, and we've seen this in matches before, where both guys attempt to roll up the other, but this time it paid off for Seth, because after one roll-up attempt for Elias, Seth got his own roll-up, and he pulled on the tights, well, the pants, because Elias wears pants, so he pulled on the pants of Elias and got the win. So Seth had to cheat to beat Elias. Not sure how I feel about that. Seth's character doesn't exactly match a cheater, per se. I mean, we've seen babyfaces cheat before. Of course, Eddie Guerrero comes to mind. But, I don't know, Seth's character doesn't really lend to that too much. But, hey, it was a good match. And I assume, based on the fact that he had to cheat to win, and Elias was complaining to the referee after the match, I assume this feud is not over. We might get a stipulation match at Extreme Rules, and either Seth will definitively beat him there, or Elias might win the championship there. But I'm pretty sure this feud isn't over yet. Up next was the first of the 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches. It was the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. We had Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Lana, Naomi, Natalya, Alexa Bliss, Sasha Banks, and Ember Moon. And of the 2 ladder matches on the show, this was, to me, easily the best one. And by virtue of that, was probably the best match of the night, in my opinion. These ladies, they kicked ass in this match. It was far better than the ladder match we had at last year's show, and even the one we had on SmackDown after that one. It was like the week after they did the rematch. So this women's match was better than both of those. And in terms of the historic matches this year, like they had the Women's Elimination Chamber and the Women's Rumble, I think this was the best of those matches so far this year. So good for them. Everyone got a chance to shine. Ember Moon hit a crossbody on Sasha Banks, and when she hit it on Sasha, she landed right on a ladder. It was a really perfect looking crossbody. It would have looked great even without the ladder, but the ladder, of course, added some extra to it. Charlotte and Becky, they went face to face numerous times in this match. One of the first times they had a tug of war with a ladder. So the ladder was kind of vertical. It was horizontally set up, but they were pulling on it in a vertical way. And Naomi bounced up and she got on top of the ladder and dove off of it onto Natty. So that was impressive. Naomi had a lot of impressive spots in this match. Sasha hit the elevator knees spot in the corner, and she hit it on both Ember and Lana on a ladder, so that one was pretty good. At one point, all 8 women, I believe, were on top of the ladders, trying to go after the briefcase. Sasha ended up getting powerbombed on a ladder set up in the corner by Natalya, and Ember Moon got powerbombed on a ladder, I believe, by Charlotte. Lana and Alexa Bliss had a little exchange in there, which I thought was really cool. Of course, Lana was over with the whole Lana Day stuff. So her and Alexa, and it ended up with Lana locking Alexa in the Accolade, which I thought was pretty funny. And then we get closer to the finish, so everyone starting to get taken out by people's either finishers or just moves, taking each other out. And Charlotte, she went under the ladder. A ladder was set up in the middle of the ring, and Charlotte went under it to the other side of the ring to spear Ember Moon. And then she and Becky went at it a little bit, and Charlotte tried to repeat that same move, but Becky kind of caught her and then hit the Bexploder on Charlotte onto a ladder in the corner. And Becky climbed the ladder. It looked like she was about to get it, but then Alexa came, knocked her off, and she climbed up the ladder and got the briefcase. So Alexa Bliss was Miss Money in the Bank. A little disappointed because I didn't like a lot of the women in this match. Alexa kind of fell in the category of women who didn't exactly need the briefcase. I'd throw someone like Charlotte and maybe even Sasha in that same category. And Lana, in terms of the fact that she was not going to win. I thought that, someone like Ember Moon would make sense. Probably Becky, of course. I mean, she needs a bone thrown at her. And I thought I figured Natalya could win, and in fact, the idea in my mind of what to do with Natalya as Miss Money in the Bank was the exact thing they did with Alexa Bliss, and I think it would have made even a lot more sense. But they have their plans, and I'll get to that later. But I didn't hate Alexa winning. I was just a little disappointed because, like I said, she didn't exactly need to win, and she just lost the championship at WrestleMania. So I figured maybe some people would like a break from Alexa in the championship picture, but clearly we ain't gonna get that now since she's the champion coming out of this show. But again, we'll get to that. But still, like I said, hats off to the women. It was the best ladder match, and by virtue of that, was the best match of the entire show. So hats off to them. From best match of the show to worst match of the show, we had Jinder Mahal versus Roman Reigns. You put Jinder Mahal and Roman Reigns together in the ring in front of the Chicago crowd. What did you think was going to happen? The chants in this match, I think someone took a list of it, made a list of it, so immediately they chanted CM Punk, which was a given. There were no CM Punk chants at TakeOver. the previous night, but people actually cared about a lot of the matches on that show. So they didn't care about this one, unfortunately. So there was a CM Punk chant. There was a boring chant. NXT, this is awful. Johnny Wrestling for Johnny Gargano, for those who don't know. Asshole, I have no idea who they chanted that at. Maybe beach balls came out and someone took the beach balls away. Let's go Cena, Cena sucks. Delete. Let's go beach ball. Okay, so the beach ball came out here. So I don't know why they chanted asshole before. Maybe Roman, I don't know. There was a Mexican wave, so the crowd did do a wave. There were you suck chants, and of course, this match sucks. The match did not suck, but of the matches on the show, it was the worst because it was so basic and the crowd shat on it. And this is the same problem coming out of WrestleMania with Roman and Brock. I was there, so I was in the crowd when they shat on that match. And it is disrespectful in terms of you have these two guys out there trying to work, busting their ass, trying to put on a good match, and the fans just outright reject it. But that's been the story of this entire Roman Reigns thing. Hell, it's the story with Jinder Mahal too. Dude was months as champion and no one ever bought into it. No one still can buy into Jinder Mahal in that main event role. Roman Reigns, no one wants to buy into Roman Reigns in that main event role. So you got two guys that the crowd rejects for being in the positions that they're in, and you put them in the ring together in a hostile environment like that, you get what you get. But to the match itself, Sunil Singh was out there all in a wheelchair and all that kind of stuff because he got beat up by Roman Reigns on Raw the previous week. He did interfere though, to prove that he was not hurt, but his interference worked earlier, but then later on in the match, it did not. Roman caught him and ended up giving him a Superman punch and a spear. He got back in the ring and eventually speared Jinder and got the 1-2-3. So the feud's over. Another feud that has been an extreme disappointment and reason to not enjoy most of Raw. So hopefully it's over here. Again, a case where a feud is terrible, but on the match comes and the babyface wins clean, signifying the end of the feud. So hopefully people like Roman and Lashley and Bryan, with their wins on this show, ending their terrible feuds, means that they can finally move on to bigger and better things. Although with Roman, I don't know. It looks like he's probably going to challenge Brock for the championship at a SummerSlam, but there's still another pay-per-view in between there at Extreme Rules, so I don't know what he does there. So I guess we'll see. Up next was the SmackDown Women's Championship match, Carmella defending against Asuka. Carmella impressed. She was very impressive in this match. This was probably her best showing. She got in a lot of offense on Asuka. But, you can't keep Asuka down for too long. But she can be easily distracted, apparently, because right towards the end of the match, what appeared to be a guy came up on the apron, dressed in Asuka attire, basically Asuka cosplay here. And Asuka was just entranced by this person. She was, hypnotized. She couldn't keep her eyes off of him. And, she got in a kick on Carmella once, but Carmella's down, and she just completely ignores her and is just staring at this guy who's not doing anything. He's just standing there. Then he takes off his mask and reveals himself to be James Ellsworth, who was rumored to be re-signing with the company for the past few weeks, and that happened here. So James Ellsworth is back. Asuka screamed at him and then turned around to a super kick from Carmella and got beat. Carmella retains the championship. She has James Ellsworth back in her corner. This made Asuka look incredibly stupid. She had Carmella down, basically dead to rights, and she's staring at this person who's standing on the ring apron, but he's not doing anything. It's not like he's distracting the referee. He's just standing there. She could have easily just went over, put Carmella in the Asuka lock or pin her or something like that and end the damn thing. And then if he interferes, then okay, it's a problem. But he's just standing there and you're just staring at him. She looked like a complete idiot here. So I have no sympathy for Asuka losing. People may be upset about, oh, Asuka getting pinned here. She deserved it based on that. She looked like a complete idiot. So maybe you could have did the Ellsworth thing without having Asuka look so dumb. But I assume this feud's gonna continue and eventually Asuka will win the championship. But till then, Carmella gets a big win. As cheap a victory as it is, she wins and James Ellsworth is back. Duh. Up next in their final match, AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura, last man standing for the WWE Championship. A lot of people upset with the finish of this match, Nakamura failing to win the championship. I just didn't think it was going to happen, man. You got two incredibly talented guys in AJ and Nakamura on the same show at the same time. And AJ's so hot right now. It just wasn't the best time to take the belt off of him, I don't think. But, hey, they had a really good match here. It started off pretty slow. I mean, they were fighting around ringside and in the crowd and all that kind of stuff, but it did start a little slow. But, things built up. It got progressively better. At one point, AJ was up on the, security wall and, Nakamura knocked him off and he fell face first on the mat on the outside. So that looked pretty brutal. But, they were still just kind of fighting around, doing the counting and all that kind of stuff. It was pretty basic stuff. But as, they built up more and more, the match got even better. And by the end of it, I was hooked. The fans were into it all night. Let's go AJ, Nakamura, and all that kind of stuff. But stuff started to get really good once the tables started to come out. Starting with the announce table, Nakamura suplexed AJ on the announce table. I think it was the German announce table, I want to say. And then he cleared off all the other ones and ran across the tables to give AJ the Kinshasa. So that was pretty cool. Not enough to keep AJ down though. Nakamura eventually got a regular table from under the ring, brought it into the ring, tried to do something, tried to suplex him through it. But AJ got out of it. Then Nakamura set the table up in the corner and just threw AJ into the table. It looked really brutal. Cause that table just disintegrated pretty much. So that was a pretty brutal spot. Again, AJ got back up. At some point, the turnbuckle got exposed, so the steel part was showing, and Nakamura attempted to knee AJ, but AJ moved, and Nakamura kneed the turnbuckle, and then AJ started to punch the knee, put him in the calf crusher, eventually got a chair on the outside and started to beat him down with it. And then Nakamura was kind of begging for AJ to stop, pleading with him to stop. AJ came towards him and Nakamura gave him another low blow and then a Kinshasa. So after all these months, AJ still has not learned to wear a cup. Unbelievable. I know they're uncomfortable, but gosh damn it, you're wrestling a guy who hits you in the nuts every single chance he gets, and you're in a no holds barred match pretty much. Wear a cup. Eventually they fought towards the announce tables again, and AJ delivered a phenomenal forearm off the announce table onto Nakamura. They went over to the steel steps, and AJ delivered a Styles Clash off of the steps onto the ground. Got a holy shit chant from the crowd, and it looked pretty brutal. I haven't seen him do that since, believe it or not, James Ellsworth a few years ago. So that looked pretty brutal. Nakamura did get back up to his feet, and he was leaning against, I think it was the Hindu announce table. Hindu or Indian, I'm not sure which it was, but it was one of the furthest tables. So he was leaning up against it. He started smiling and laughing and taunting AJ. And then AJ just looked at him and just wound back and kicked him right in the balls. And then AJ gets back in the ring, hits a phenomenal forearm from the ring, connecting with Nakamura, planting him through the table. Both men were down, but it was AJ who managed to get back up to his feet at the 7, at the count of 7 or 8. It was one of those, but managed to get back to his feet, and referee counted to 10. Nakamura was down, and AJ was on his feet. So AJ is still your WWE champion. Like I said, it was a great match, the best match of this entire feud. Ever since WrestleMania, their matches have gotten better. Just the 2 matches in between where there were non-finishes kind of hurt it, but they've had great matches, and this was probably the best one. And like I said, a lot of people upset that Nakamura didn't walk out as champion, but hey, his time to win the title was one of those matches with Jinder Mahal. In fact, had he won the championship then, he could have held it on for a few months, and then AJ could have been the one to win the Royal Rumble. And then they go to WrestleMania, AJ wins the belt from Nakamura, and then that plays into the this whole storyline. So there you go. But they didn't want to do that. They want to keep the belt on Jinder and then transition it to AJ. But Nakamura will get a championship eventually, but it's just not his time right now. They went a run with AJ, and it's hard to argue. AJ is still one of the best in the company. I don't think he's number 1 right now, not with Seth Rollins doing what he's doing, and quite frankly, Johnny Gargano in NXT is killing it right now too. So I don't know if AJ is still number 1. Maybe he's 1A or 1B or something like that. But yeah. But at least on SmackDown, he's one of the top guys. I know you got people like Bryan and Joe and all that kind of stuff, but now that paves the way for some really cool feuds. Hell, we could get AJ and Samoa Joe. I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be a feud going forward. In fact, that should be the feud going forward. But, yeah, so I'm not upset about Nakamura winning. I can understand it if you are, especially if you're a Nakamura fan. That makes even more sense. But, I have no problems with it. This was a great match. I was happy to at least see a definitive win. We haven't seen that since WrestleMania. But yeah, that's where things stand. Up next, the most heavy promoted match of the show, Nia Jax defending the Raw Women's Championship against Ronda Rousey, and believe it or not, this was one of the best matches on the entire show. In fact, if you tell me that this was your favorite match of the entire show, I wouldn't argue with you, because these 2 women, you got Nia Jax, who has improved, especially since her days in NXT, but she keeps improving, but she's still a little inexperienced. And Ronda Rousey, this is her very first singles match on TV in general. Every match she's had up to this point has been multi-person, so this is her very first ever singles match, especially on TV in a prime spot like this. Basically doomed to fail, but these 2 actually put on a really good match. Nia dominated a lot. She dominated pretty much the entire match, and Ronda sold for her. People were curious at how Ronda would do selling, and she sold the hell out of every single one of Nia's moves. In fact, she sold better than almost anyone else who I've ever seen in the ring with Nia Jax. So she sold like a pro out there. Ronda did have some hope spots. She tried to lock Nia in the armbar, which we clearly saw Nia tap to on Raw the previous week, but Nia broke it up with a powerbomb, and she dominated for a good majority of the match, but eventually Ronda did come back. She hit a crossbody off the top rope, and she hit it was kind of an awkward judo throw, but she hit a judo throw nonetheless, so I thought that was really cool. And then we set up for the finish. Ronda has Nia in the armbar. You know, her fingers are still clasped together, but Ronda's in a position where she's trying to break it, and then she finally does get it in. But then, out of nowhere, Alexa Bliss comes in and hits Ronda in the back with the briefcase, causing the DQ. But for once, a DQ finish to a match on pay-per-view is perfectly fine because it sets something up. So Alexa proceeded to beat up both women with the briefcase, and then she finally did cash in, and she hit a DDT on Nia Jax, and then hit her with the Twisted Bliss and got the win. So Alexa Bliss is a 5-time women's champion, 2 SmackDown and her 3rd Raw one here. And this makes 16 consecutive pay-per-views that Alexa Bliss is the champion or challenging for the championship. She is either in a match or appearing on the pay-per-view as champion or challenging for the championship or defending the championship. So that's pretty impressive. That is extremely impressive. This is ever since TLC 2016. So every single pay-per-view she's been on ever since, both brands, at least whatever pay-per-view her brand is on, and even these dual branded shows now, she's been in a championship picture. So impressive for her. I said earlier, I felt that you could have did this exact thing with Natalya and it would have made sense, especially with the connection they built up between Natalya and not only Ronda, but Nia Jax a few weeks ago. That match between Nia and Natalya, they established that Natty and Ronda and Nia are friends, so it would have made sense twofold here, but I guess they don't want to run with her as the top heel. They want to keep Alexa in that spot, and I guess this is going to build up to Alexa Bliss versus Ronda Rousey at SummerSlam, with Ronda tapping out Alexa to win her championship there, hold it all the way up until WrestleMania, and maybe defend it against Charlotte in the very first ever women's main event of WrestleMania. So I see probably a triple threat or a multi-woman match at Extreme Rules, and then Ronda, Alexa, one-on-one at SummerSlam. So that's my thoughts on it, at least. But I like Alexa. I know a lot of people don't, but a lot of people do. She's not the best in ring, but she is really good. And again, I probably would have preferred to see her out of the championship picture for at least a little while. But they want a real true top heel to face Ronda. I guess the friendship thing with her and Natty wasn't enough for them, so they went with Alexa. So there you go. But the match between Nia and Ronda was really good. If you didn't see it, go back and watch it. It was really good. And the stuff with the cash-in was really all good too. So the women were killing it on this show. Between this and the ladder match earlier, the women really stole the show in that regard. And then finally, the main event, the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. You had The Miz, Rusev, Kevin Owens, Finn Balor, Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman, and it was revealed to be Kofi Kingston of the New Day to compete in this match, which I pretty much figured it would be. So they had a really good match, but it wasn't as good as the women's match. Not at all. And that's usually the case in these situations where you have two of the same match on the same show. The first one's usually the best, and then the second one, while usually being good, just doesn't live up to it. Braun Strowman, he was the main focus of this match. Everyone trying to attack him and take him out, but him keep coming back, and then that eventually paid off for him. Everyone jumped on Braun early on. They beat him up all the way up the ramp onto the stage, where they buried him under a bunch of ladders. So that incapacitated him for a little bit. Then the rest of the guys started to fight for a while. At one point, Kofi did his trust dive onto a bunch of guys on the outside, but they caught him and held him up. God knows what they were going to do to him, because Finn Balor interrupted. He dove over the top rope onto everyone, and then he went back up the stage to grab one of the ladders, and then that's when Braun Strowman reappeared, and he prevented Balor from doing that. He came back into the equation, started to beat up everyone. But then eventually, Kevin Owens, Rusev, and Samoa Joe started to dominate him. At first, it was just Rusev and Owens. But then Joe got involved, locked Braun in the Coquina Clutch. Rusev and Joe tried to put Braun on the table, and Kevin Owens climbed a really tall ladder. This was all in the back of the arena, trying to do the frog splash spot that he did on Raw. But Braun escaped. He climbed up the ladder, and Kevin Owens tried to get down, but Braun pulled him back up, yelled at him, and then threw him all the way off of the ladder, threw a table off to the side. It was very brutal looking, because that was a pretty high ladder. Back And then after that, Kofi Kingston tried to attack Braun. Braun chokeslammed him on the pile of ladders that he was buried under. Bobby Roode and Finn Balor tried to come at him with a ladder, but Braun literally just ran right through it. So he was running roughshod. Eventually, he did get taken out again, and the rest of the guys had a chance to shine. Everyone got their chance to shine on this match. At one point, Rusev locked not only Kofi Kingston, but also Bobby Roode, and then also The Miz in a three-way accolade. But that got interrupted within seconds by Samoa Joe locking him in the coquina clutch. Finn Balor had a pretty big spot. There was a really giant ladder outside the ring, but it was tall enough to be taller than the ring itself. So Balor climbed up the ladder and hit a coup de grace off of that ladder on the outside of the ring onto Bobby Roode inside of the ring. And that was even still taller than the turnbuckle, so that was a pretty high coup de grace. So that was pretty cool. And then it came down to Braun Strowman, Kofi Kingston, and Finn Balor. Kofi was on Braun's back, and he was climbing. Still on the other side was Finn Balor. Balor gets knocked off, and then Kofi gets knocked off of Braun's back. Braun climbs up, and he yanks down the briefcase and wins. So Braun Strowman, the most obvious choice to win, the man everyone was trying to take out, especially Kevin Owens, for this match. They tried their best. The whole story of this match was to keep Braun Strowman down, and he kept coming back, and eventually it paid off because he won. I'm a big Braun Strowman fan. I love the guy. I'm a huge fan of him. I'm a big fan of his improvement, and I definitely see him as being potential for being the top guy in the company. But I don't think he really needed to win here. I think someone like Miz would have been a better option, especially since a SmackDown guy didn't win. So both Raw got the briefcases. Now, granted, the one briefcase isn't there anymore since it already got cashed in on the show with Alexa Bliss. But SmackDown kind of looked weak in that regard. But I'm not even thinking about it from a brand perspective. I'm thinking about it with superstars. And it's like, who would be better suited to get it? And I think someone like Miz could have benefited. Even Kevin Owens, if you wanted a babyface, maybe Finn Balor, maybe. Hell, even Kofi Kingston probably would have been an interesting choice. But of the guys in this match, the most obvious choice, and the person who most definitely did not need to win, was Braun Strowman. But he won anyway. So in that regard, the pay-per-view kind of ended a little flat for me, but the fans loved it, as they did a lot of the stuff on this show, aside from Roman Reigns and Jinder Mahal, of course. But they loved seeing Braun win. They loved seeing Alexa win and cash in to become champion. But yeah, and it's hard for me to look at the two ladder matches, especially the women's ladder match, that last man standing match, Ronda and Nia, and the cash in at the end, and even Seth Rollins and Elias, and even that opening match with Daniel Bryan and Big Cass. It's hard for me to look at all of that and say this was a bad show. Roman Reigns and Jinder Mahal was not enough to make this a bad show. Okay, so kudos to everyone out there. Of course, TakeOver was better, but that's kind of a redundant thing to say at this point. But I was impressed. So now, full speed ahead to Extreme Rules. I don't know if the quality of Raw will improve, because Raw has just been awful to watch in the last month. So I don't know how much that's going to improve. I am not looking forward to it, but I am looking forward to seeing what they set up for Extreme Rules. This was a long show, 4 hours. I hate that all the pay-per-views going forward will be that long. Some will be even longer, but it's just something to deal with. So that's it for me. I'm going to go back and go back and watch the Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy 24 special on the network. So till Extreme Rules, I will check you guys later.